Good morning, everyone. This is Sarah with Posh Pooch Designs, and this is our live video. And if you didn't know, every Tuesday morning at 9:30 Mountain Standard Time, that's 9:30 a.m. in the morning, we have a live video chat. We try to almost every Tuesday morning. Occasionally, I might not have one if I'm on vacation or sick or something. Good morning, Jen. Well, this is our live video chat. Hi, Karen. Thanks for joining in. And hello, Michelle. Everybody clink in. Hi, Petra. Well, I made a silly little video and I spun my chair and I guess I made a few people sick. I just did a silly little video and I videoed my chair spinning and I got a message that said, "You made me sick." It's okay. Hi, Sharon. Good morning, Elizabeth. Clink in, everyone. I've got my butterfly cup today because spring is my favorite time of year, and that's when we start seeing all the butterflies. I even got my butterfly shirt on. Well, we have a lot of fun things to talk about today, and we're also going to start our series. Today is part 1 on learning to read a crochet pattern. But before we do that, I was kind of wondering, I do a lot of container gardening. This year I decided to buy some blueberries and blackberries and raspberries that are self-pollinating, put them in great big pots on my deck. And I've also got tomatoes and I think cucumbers and peppers and a bunch of herbs and things. And of course flowers to bring the bees around. Does anybody else garden? Hi, Tina. Thanks for joining in. Does anybody else garden or container garden like I do? I just love spring. It's my favorite time of year. All the flowers are budding and the blooming and the trees are budding and everybody's sneezing from the allergies. Well, I would love to hear about what you're doing, and if you take a picture, post a picture underneath the video. I'd love to see your gardens or your container gardens. I always call mine a garden. I was blessed to have a double-decker deck. In the bottom deck, I have all my vegetables and fruits and things like that. I've got flowers on the top too. But boy, is it making me sneeze. I was so worried. I woke up this morning and the bottom of my eyes were like super puffy. And I was like, oh no. Most of it's gone down, but I am in my 50s, so I'm not going to look like I'm 20 anymore. Although I sure wish I could afford some of that Botox. Well, everybody, I'm so glad you're here today. Please clink in with your coffee or your tea or whatever you're drinking today. I've got good old, I think it's called 8 o'clock coffee Irish blend. It's very good. All right, well, let's go ahead and get right into our subject. And that is how to read a crochet pattern. And to me, it's very important, even if you just get some of the basics, to learn to read a crochet pattern because there's so much you're missing out on if you can't read a crochet pattern. And let me tell you, if you do ever have any trouble with a pattern, you know, even me, sometimes I'll read other people's patterns and I might have trouble and I'll just contact the pattern designer, and if I can't get a hold of them, I do some Googling. And one thing to remember, if there's ever a stitch that you don't understand, maybe they described it different than the way you're used to, try it the designer's way first, because sometimes it does work out. And then if it doesn't work for you, you can Google. But always ask the pattern designer, because I think, like me, I am human and I might make a mistake. And I might type a double crochet when I mean a single crochet or a triple. Or I might have meant to put foundation double crochet and I put back post or something. And I do have someone, you know, people who test my patterns. I do have a friend that checks my math because it was so funny. The other day I was at a crochet group and they were asking me, "Good morning, Susie, glad you're here." The other morning we had a little Easter get together with my crochet group, and a couple of different ladies were asking me some questions about a couple different patterns that they're working on. And I said, there's something you need to understand about pattern designers. Pattern designers cannot do math. You know, if you think about it, a dress designer who designs a dress or a suit or hat or whatever, they design it, but somebody else makes a pattern for it if you want to make it. And as crochet designers, we design the crochet pattern, we design the crochet item, and we do it all ourselves. And then, of course, we have others test it and things like that. So let me, just a shout out to crochet designers. You know, they work hard. There's lots involved in it. There's the designing, the cost of the yarn and materials. There's time for photographs and videos. Takes time for editing and a lot of those things. And some of us pay our pattern readers and testers, and some people have assistants, which I don't. Maximo and Rosie, my pooches, are my assistants. So I thought I would just preface everything with that. Try to be kind to those pattern designers, especially some who are just beginning. Some people, they come up with a really great pattern. There isn't one out there, so they'll jot something down for you. And if it's not perfect, they're just trying to help you out. And like I said, always contact the pattern designer. All right, so I decided to use the pattern that I wrote for my grandson. It's Aiden's bracelet. It's a bracelet for Aiden crochet design, crochet pattern. Sorry. And I decided to use this as what we're going to work off of today because it is a beginner pattern. And I want you to go and get it and look at it when you get a chance. A bracelet for Aiden. And I'll put that link up there in the corner there once it's on YouTube, and then you can just click that link and get the pattern also. But I'll also put the blog link down underneath the video when we're done, so you'll have that too. All right, I feel like I'm like right up in your face today. I don't know if I set my cameras up different today or what. Okay, so when you go and choose a pattern, there's always going to be a skill. And we've talked about this before. And remember, beginner and easy are not the same thing. Beginner is beginner, basic. Easy has a few more techniques, and then the next one is intermediate, and then the next one is experienced. And I always add a moderate in between the easy and the intermediate, because some things aren't quite as difficult, but they might be something that I did a little shaping or something. And I think it's easy, but you might need to remember it's not easy. And so every pattern is going to have a skill. And you need to pay attention to that, because something that people run into a lot is they'll pick up a pattern and it will say easy, and they'll say, I'm a beginner, but I don't understand what's going on. I said, it's because you're doing a pattern that's too hard for you. Or they'll pick up a pattern, they won't pay attention to the skill, and it's an experienced, and they're like, I've only been crocheting for a couple months, I can't figure this out. Well, I sound a little bit like Minnie Mouse there, didn't I? Anyway, the thing is, it is important to remember the skill. And sometimes we think we're better than we are. I mean, there's some of those that are experienced patterns. I set them in the naughty corner and go back to them later as I try to figure it out. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't do this. And then I figure it out later. And that is something that I do. If a pattern's a little bit difficult and I can't figure it all out, I'll start on it and then I'll say, okay, I'm going to take a break. It goes in the naughty corner, and then when I'm ready, I'll go back and get it. And sometimes it has to do with the yarns too, because some yarns are bumpy and lumpy, or some are really thin, or the thick and thin yarns, you know. But anyway, the first thing to remember when you're choosing a pattern, and it's on the pattern, is the skill. The next thing you're going to come across is a materials list. And this materials list is very important because it's going to tell you which hook they recommend that you use. It's going to tell you what yarns they recommend that you use. And they're also going to tell you if you need other things like a yarn needle or buttons or hooks, or if it's got some knitting in it, you might need a DPN or something. So make sure you pay attention to that list. And most lists are going to tell you the amount you need of yarn, and it'll tell you if you can use worsted weight or cotton. It'll tell you all kinds of different information just right there. And you need to pay attention to that, because I've had many people ask me, can I use cotton instead of worsted weight? Or can I use a sport weight instead of worsted weight? And it's real important to understand that all those are categories. You have, I think there's like 7 categories now. They added a new one for the super chunky number 7. But it starts with very tiny fine, and then they're all numbered 1 through 7, and they get thicker and thicker and thicker. And then you'll come across some yarns that are thick and thin, and you'll have areas that are really thin and areas that are really thick. And those are super fun to work with once you figure out how to work with them. But when you get a pattern and it's giving you a recommendation of yarn, really try to use that yarn. Because if you substitute, say, you know, this one says to use an I hook, and you're like, oh, I'm going to use my F instead, you're going to get really tight stitches. And if you substitute a yarn, this is you can use a worsted weight 4 or cotton, and you're like, I'm going to use my chunky. You can, but make sure you change to a bigger hook. And every yarn that you purchase is going to have a recommended hook size. That doesn't mean you have to use it. It's just a recommended hook size that they have tested and it works for them, whoever the manufacturer is. And also it depends on how loose you want it to be. Sometimes I'm working with the worsted weight 4 and I go ahead and use like a K because I want it to be a little more lacy. So pay attention to those kind of things when you're looking at the materials list. And you'll notice this one even says a tape measure. Measuring everything. I tell people all the time, your tape measure is your very best friend. In crochet, in knitting, and sewing, and anything, your tape measure is your very best thing. Because everyone has a different gauge. Everyone has a different tension. And so you may make a tension or a gauge swatch and it not work when you go to do the pattern itself. Because you may have been watching some intense movie when you made that gauge swatch, and now you're relaxed out in the sunshine just crocheting, and you're like, oh, this isn't working. Because you change depending on what's going on in your life. And so make sure you measure. And that's why this one says tape measure. And of course, yarn needle. I never write scissors on there, but I guess I just assume every crocheter's got some scissors sitting around. And I do. I buy, let me tell you a little hint. In the fall, when all the school supplies are on sale, I go and I pick up those children's safety scissors. They're plenty sharp to cut yarn, and they're also blunt on the end, and you don't have any trouble taking them with you on an airplane, on a train, or anywhere that you need to go because there's no points. And I have a little, I don't have one sitting around here. It's probably on my yarn bag. But it's a little pouch that I just put my scissors inside. I button it closed. It's got a little hook. I hook it on the side of every one of my yarn bags because I have them everywhere. And so then, and I do lose scissors often. And so I don't feel bad if I paid $2 for a pair of little children's scissors because they work great and they're everywhere around my house. There's probably one in every room in the house, in every drawer. So you need to pay attention to the skill. You need to pay attention to your materials. The other thing that you need to pay attention to is your stitches. And it'll have all the stitches and abbreviations for stitches and techniques in this section. And this is one of the most important sections because it'll have the name, it'll say chain, and it'll have the abbreviation. And learning to read the abbreviations is like learning a whole new language because those are the things that are used in writing out the patterns. And you'll see it says single crochet, then it has in parentheses SC. That's the abbreviation. Here it says skip stitch. No, it says slip stitch. And it has the abbreviation. And sometimes it'll have skip and it'll just be, and the abbreviation will be SK, or space, and it'll have SP. And let me tell you, years and years ago, like 40s and 50s and probably before that, when they were writing patterns, oh my goodness, I have some magazines that my mother-in-law gave me and some books that are from the 40s and 50s. I bet they were her mom's, probably. And I just love them. They're very precious to me. But reading those patterns is so complicated because nowadays when we start you out, we tell you every little thing to do. Older patterns in these older magazines, older books, it'll just have all the abbreviations in a line. It doesn't give you stitch counts. It's just almost impossible to read. But nowadays, we try to give you more information, and it depends on the pattern designer. But I try to give you as much information as I can. Probably too much sometimes. So be happy you live in the time that we live and that patterns are easier to read. Okay, now the next thing you'll see, you've got your stitches and abbreviations. Learn those. Those will help you. Like I said, it's like learning a whole new language. Except there's no grammar. I remember in high school learning Spanish. Oh my word, the grammar. Who am I kidding? I have trouble with English grammar. The next section you should see, under this one, sometimes you'll see special stitches. And that's if the designer is using something different or special or new, or they want you to do the technique a certain way. And it'll list it, and then it'll have abbreviation, and then it'll tell you what to do. And this is where, like if they say special stitches and it just says V-stitch, there are many ways to do a V-stitch. So they'll explain to you in that pattern how they want you to do it. All right, so the next thing you'll see on here is size. Now this one is not a specific size. This pattern is so you can make it in any size. And you'll see it says 3 chains per inch plus 5. And what that means is you'll need to chain for every inch 3 chains. For instance, if your arm is 10 inches around, you'll need to chain 30. And then you'll need to chain this additional 5. And this is called a repeat. It'll say, some patterns will just say repeat of 5 plus 2. And what that is sometimes when you begin, depending if you're starting with a double crochet, single crochet, or a slip stitch, you're going to, like for instance, if I say chain 10 plus 4, then you're going to double crochet in the 3rd chain from the hook. Those first 3 chains counts as a double crochet. So you need those extra chains. And so for this one, these 5 chains are the loop in the bracelet because we're doing a bracelet. So you want the bracelet to fit around your arm and then have overlap for the loop. This is where you need to measure on this one. Remember, tape measure is your best friend. Okay, now sometimes you'll have a pattern that says size small, medium, and large, and then it'll say pattern written in small with other sizes in parentheses. And what that means is your stitch counts will be like, for instance, let's say small is 5 chains, and then it has parentheses, and medium is 10, and then 15 chains is your next size up, like small, medium, large. Okay. All through the pattern will be written for the one size, and then it'll have parentheses, and in those parentheses will be the other sizes. Sometimes you'll have extra rows to do. Sometimes you'll have extra chains to do, and that's for sizing. Okay? And so that's what that's about. And I've got an example here. It's for the repeat. I forgot to show you this. 3 times 6 is 18. Plus 5 equals 23. And that's your beginning chain. Now we're not going to talk any farther on reading the pattern this week. What I want you to do, I have a homework assignment for you. You have homework. I want you to go to my blog, and like I said, I'll put the blog link under the video on Facebook and on YouTube when we put it over there. And I want you to go to this blog. And all you have to do is copy the pattern, highlight it with your roll over it with your mouse and highlight it. Copy it and put it to a Word document and then print off that document so you'll have this piece of paper to look at next week when we do part 2. Okay? Or if you've got 2 phones or an iPad and a phone, or you're going to use your phone to watch the video, you can go to your computer and look at this at the same time. I just want you to be able to look at this next week when we talk about part 2, and it's going to be actually reading the pattern itself. So today part 1 was understanding the beginning portion, basically getting started, and then part 2 is going to be actually reading the pattern. Okay? Now, like I said, this is on my blog. There's also a YouTube video, and you can go and watch the video also. And like I said, I'll have that link up there. And that will also help you. This is a beginner pattern. And what we're doing here is beginner pattern reading. Don't let not being able to read a pattern hold you back. You're missing out on a bunch of wonderful patterns because, we're afraid to learn to read a pattern. And the key to this is taking it slow and you're reading everything. Most pattern designers give you a bunch of information. And some of it I look at, God, that, you know, that's okay. I understand it. But if you are a beginner, read everything. And another thing that you can do if you're a beginner is go on Ravelry.com. Everybody needs to be on Ravelry. It's amazing. There are millions of patterns on there, millions free and millions that are paid. But go in and, thank you, Susie. She says I'm awesome. Go to Ravelry and in their search bar put beginner patterns. And a bunch of stuff will come up, and there's tons of things that you can learn off those beginner patterns. So that's part one of learning to read a crochet pattern. And of course, we'll review all of this, but like I said, do your homework. All right, well, let's talk about what's going on this week at Posh Pooch Designs. So next month is May, right? So I've got a lot of fun things going on. The first thing I want to show you is this is our emerald square for our monthly crochet along. And if you haven't been doing the monthly crochet along, each month we're doing a 6-inch square. And the square is inspired by the monthly birthstone. And some of them have been one color, some two. And this one is just a one color square. And I tried to make it look like the emerald was in the center, and then we just spread out. And this is one of my favorite. Every month I say this. This is one of my favorites so far. Now, after we get 12 squares, one each month, done, I have a project I've already been working on for what we're going to do with these 12 squares. And I think you're going to like it. I've got a really neat idea. My voice is getting dry. So that's our square, and that'll be out the second week of May, so be watching for that. And then I'm continuing on with my cotton fever. I'm doing a couple of weeks of cotton things because I got a lot of questions about what can we do? It's getting hot, and I don't want to sit with a big Afghan on my lap. So I've been putting together some patterns that I already wrote. Some of them are like 7 years old. And we're retesting and making new pictures and videos of a lot of cotton items. Thank you, Tina. She says a pretty square. The thing about the squares, back on the squares, is I'm trying to make them pretty, but I'm also trying to make them not too hard because I want people to love to do them. And a lot of times when I'm doing a super complicated piece, I get frustrated with it and I set it aside, and I want you to do these. I want us to have fun with them. Okay, so what do we have going on this week with our cotton fever? Instead of spring fever, I'm calling it cotton fever. All right, so yesterday I did a video with these key rings. They're really simple. This is a beginner pattern as well. And also I showed you how to make some fun polymer clay beads. But you can use any beads that you have, that you want. You just need a key ring, some cotton yarn, and some beads. And I think it was with an H hook. I'd have to look at the pattern again. But this is a really fun project, something that you can do working with cotton yarn. Another thing that we're going to do is this. And this is a tissue bag. It's spring. Everyone has their little tissues with them. I did one in a variegated, and this one is just in some bright colors. This is going to be a new pattern and video. Then this is my market bag. It's a cotton market bag that's just super easy. It's done with triple crochet stitches. Has a nice handle. And the neat thing about the bag is it's up to you how long you want this bag. You know, the bottom is a set size, and this took 2 rolls of the, I think I used peaches and cream. And when I do my bags, I do really prefer to use the peaches and cream opposed to some of the softer ones, because I'm going to toss this in the wash a lot. Because if I'm going to put fruits and vegetables in here, it's going to need to be washed a lot. Because you don't want any of that left behind, or you'll get mold in your bag. So, but you can do it as long as you want, and you can also make the handle as long as you want. And it's just really simple triple crochet stitches, any colors of cotton, and it's another great way to use up your cotton scraps. Just make a fun bag with all different colors. It's great. All right, then the last thing is this is a slide-on cotton dog bandana. The light's a little funky doodle. There we go. Let me show you the green one. This one's not on the band. And it's folded over, stitched, and then we added this fun little bone applique, and I'm going to have that on there too. And this is a new pattern, And basically I wasn't going to do another dog bandana yet, but my friend of mine here in town said, I have a bunch of dogs and I want cotton bandanas. I said, okay. She said, can you make the slide ones? I said, okay. Yes, sugar and cream will work. Sugar and cream and peaches and cream are basically the same thing as far as texture. You can also get that texture at Hobby Lobby. They have their own brand of that same texture. And then they also have the I Love This Cotton, but they also have the similar texture to the to the peaches and cream or sugar and cream. And really any cotton will work. I just really like the more stiff ones for the market bag. Just because, like I said, because I want to wash it. Well, that's our video today. And I hope you learned some things, and I hope you will learn to read a crochet pattern. Because again, like I said, I just feel like if you don't learn to read a crochet pattern, you're just missing out on lots of really fun patterns out there. All right, now, don't forget to do your homework. And I'll see you next week for part 2 of how to read a crochet pattern. Thanks for being with me today.